Welcome to Tales from the Trenches, Season 4. Today, I'm talking with Amanda Smith.
Here's a story of a fundraiser who was launching his very own web show. Each episode is very short due to edits, so it can really flow. Here's a story of a podcast guest star who was busy raising money of their own. They were each great in their own way, fundraising in the zone. Till the one day when Jack asked a guest to join him, and they knew it was much more than a jest, that these guests must somehow form a resource. That's the way they all became the podcast guests. The podcast guests. The podcast guests. That's the way they became the podcast guests.
Amanda Smith is a seasoned philanthropy leader with 20 years of experience in advancement services and strategic data management. As executive director at Lehigh Valley Health Networks, she has significantly enhanced donor pipelines and fundraising performance. With both an MBA and an MPA, Amanda combines academic expertise with practical experience for nonprofit organizations. Her achievements include increasing a donor pool by 1,455% in just 3 years. Recognized in the Association of Healthcare Philanthropy's 40 Under 40, Amanda excels in leveraging data-driven strategies to drive philanthropic successes, focusing on coaching fundraising teams and optimizing major gift strategies. So, Amanda, welcome.
Thanks, Jack, for having me.
My pet peeve in life is getting those letters and emails in December reminding me that I only have a couple weeks to make a gift for the 2025 year. So, number one, I don't need a charity to tell me when December 31st is. I have a calendar and, I didn't even have to spend money on it. Some other charity gave me a calendar. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is so you're telling me if I made a gift in January, you wouldn't accept it? It's so arbitrary that, we have to have a certain thing. You have to run a business, right? And charities are business, but it becomes so rigid, especially on the major gift side.
Okay. So as we get to December 31st, what are we doing to ensure that major gift donors are not worried about December 31st? So have we made, I say, I don't want the only time to be when you talk to a donor is when you're asking them to make a gift. So what have we done in the last 12 months to get a major gift donor to the point where we can ask for an increase or ask them to renew and not so focused on the calendar year or the fiscal year, because it's hard to put fundraising goals in that. But also, we then train our donors to only give at those times, right? So come June, if we've trained everybody to give in June, and we haven't met our fundraising total yet, then we're stressed out in June, right? Whereas if we try to do fundraising throughout the whole year, maybe we can meet our annual fund goal before June and we don't have to stress out in June. So I think it's more about training our donors in a way that meets where they are rather than an arbitrary deadline, right?
Yeah. And, with fundraising, it ebbs and flows, right? Some years you're going to go over your goal. Some years you're going to be under your goal. Rarely do you raise exactly what you have projected and budgeted for. But the problem becomes if you have an extraordinary year, if you were supposed to bring in $5 million for the organization and last year you brought in $6 million, well, then that becomes your baseline, right? And it just becomes, you wind up at some point you're going to fail and not hit your goal.
Yeah. And so who creates that baseline then too, right? So does that development staff then have a say in that goal, right? Because maybe we got an outlier. We got a planned gift that we're not getting next year, right? Or we don't know about. We got some kind of windfall gift. And I think we're so quickly to say okay, well, we're raising the budget and we're going to raise more money, but we're not evaluating the pipeline as a whole, right? Do we have the gifts to make that goal? And I know, yes, and there's a lot of, nonprofits, high pressure places that have to raise their goal year over year because expenses are going up, and that's fine. But are we looking at incremental change, or are we being drastic? I saw a job description. We saw a job description for like raise $5 million within the first 3 months. And first of all, that's not possible. But, are we then kind of setting these weird goals for ourselves and our teams that are unattainable? And then we're setting ourselves up for failure. And then we wonder why development professionals change jobs so often, right? Because we have these unrealistic expectations that just aren't feasible. And I don't know why people take these jobs. I know everybody needs a job. That might be one of the reasons. But I encourage development professionals, when they're interviewing, do you have a good pipeline? Like, what is your dollars, what does your incremental growth look like? Going from $5 to $15 million in a year is not realistic unless you have a $10 million donor that has signed up and I don't know about it.
Right, right. And, it's those measurable things. And I think that, the direct mail folks have gotten it down to such an art and a science that they can predict stuff. And the major gift world, and if you go even further, I hate the phrase planned giving because I think any meaningful gift is a planned gift, but the bequest world is even more kind of, so what do you
don't
budget
know.
for? How do I know what 5% of someone's estate is? And how do I know when they're going to pass on?
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Yeah. For us, we just get windfall plan gifts. We don't ever really, we have a lot of documented, but again, it's, 5% of my estate and I'm 65. Well, that's going to change in 30 years or however long you live. So they're nice to know about, but,
Right.
and we can steward those people appropriately. But they're not a guarantee. Just, direct mail is definitely a science. Whereas, we try to make major gifts a science. We put everybody on a pipeline. We put in an ask expected amount, what we think we're going to get. And then we cross our fingers and pray, right, that it's going to come in. But it doesn't always happen that way. So I think, having realistic goals, you have your high, you have your expected, you have your lows. But then you have your unrealistic, right? And you're not going to get it. You put it at 0% because it is pie in the sky and you hope that you get it. So I don't want people to shoot low by any means, but I want people to be realistic when they're also planning, right? Because things happen. People get laid off. People give to other charities. It happens.
Totally, totally. And, the major gift world, those folks that are in the pool, it tends to be a fairly high participation rate of those that you wind up getting a gift from. Where if you look in the direct mail pool, 4% is doing really well. 6% is like extraordinary. If your child came home and said, "Mom, I got 6% on my test," you would be less than thrilled about that.
Yeah.
So, it's a different world because you're dealing with much more, many more variables that are
but I think
there.
it goes back to relationships, right? So you're not going to call every single direct mail donor and say, "Thanks so much, Shaq, for your $5 gift this month." Like, unless they screen really well and they have capacity, like then you put them into a call pool, right? But I think if we're developing the relationships, we're going to get so much more return on investment with those major gifts. But it is a long process and it's not an overnight thing. And we're so quick to just assume that somebody wants to give us money right away, but do they have the trust in us? What's their what's the value proposition to make them want to give? And it's a long process. And I credit all development officers that do it because it is a hard job to do. For sure. And that's why I don't do it anymore. And I like the the services side of it.
Well, and it's just even further complicated by, these long relationship ramps. And then the average development officer only stays for less than 5 years, right? So now you're changing cast again. They have to start at square one.
Yep. You're starting all over. You're building trust again. And then who's to say that person's not going to leave, in 2 to 3 years or whatever. So how do you deal with that, right? Who do you give them to and how do you pass off that transition? It's hard. So We have some gift officers we're lucky. Have gift officers that have been with us for, some quite a time and have built really great relationships. So we lean on them a lot to kind of come in and fill gaps where needed. But yeah, it takes a long time.
Amanda, this has been absolutely fascinating. I really enjoyed our chats. If someone wanted to get hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. Well, Jack, depends. I have an email. It's amanda@wisenow.com, WIZENOW.com. A cool AI tool that we're working on over there on Wise, but also do some annual fund, major gift stuff as well. So thanks so much for having me. I was, first time podcaster, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear.